the AI we're using today is the worst AI we'll ever use. Because this thing is growing. I say that all the time. This thing is growing so fast every single week.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to AI with Bri, the show where we help you learn, leverage, and lead with AI. I'm your host, Brian Denstead, and in each episode, we dive into how actual practitioners are using artificial intelligence to solve real-world problems and make better decisions. Today, I'm excited to speak with a product leader whose experience spans developing and scaling digital products across industries. Anu Ram is a fractional product consultant with Crux Partners, and we'll make sure that link's in our show note, and Parsan AI. And she's a former product leader with deep experience guiding teams through strategic decisions, customer focus, and data-informed execution. She's helped so many organizations bridge the gap between vision and delivery, and she's here to talk about how AI is shaping what it means to build and lead in product today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Brian. I'm really excited to be here. Looking forward to this discussion because I always learn from so many people that are using and learning this new thing that's amongst us.
I agree completely. Like half the battle in my mind is just like planting seeds of serendipity sometimes, right? Like you just have to have this kind of a conversation to spark some ideas that you and I are going to carry forward in some of the teams that we're leading with. So thank you for being here, Anu.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You have had to, we want to start with this learn segment first, right? So you have adapted your leadership and your product mindset as AI adoption is accelerating every team, just like mine are. What is something you've learned recently about AI that's changed how you're approaching products?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question. I would say I'm going to just go back about 18 months. I picked up this book after listening to Professor Ethan Mollick talk about AI. And there were four things that he highlighted, which it's almost become my daily mantra. The first one is invite AI to everything. To everything.
Yeah, that's right.
And the second thing is always give it a lot of context. I recall, in a prior podcast, you were saying it's like speaking to a 9-year-old. Right? You kind of have to tell it a lot of context. It's like how you would ask any friend for help. You don't just ask them, right? You kind of tell them, hey, this is a preamble, this is the context, this is what I'm looking for, right? So you do that. The third thing, and I think this is the most important thing that sometimes people forget, is be the human in the loop. You are bringing something to this conversation, right? So always be the human in the loop. Don't let it just run away. And the fourth thing, and I'm sure you would agree with this, is the AI we're using today is the worst AI we'll ever use. Because this thing is growing. I say that all the time. This thing is growing so fast every single week, right? So these are the 4 rules that really started it, because I was like, oh my God, where do I start? And then I was like, you know what, I'm just going to start inviting it to everything, right? And it started out really as ChatGPT, using the Claude chat app, Perplexity, whatever, right? Whatever be the tool of your choice. And then you slowly start to think, oh my God, I'm kind of using this like a super Google, like let me use it differently, right? And then slowly your behavior starts to change. And then you realize where you are getting the most value from these tools. And it's actually not in the superficial use case. It's in fundamentally changing how you're working. And I think that is where, because the thing you asked is, what is the most recent learning, right? And the thing is that it is good to have constraints for you to get the most out of it, right? And figuring out how do you give those constraints. I always say, always ask it to show its work. If you don't show your work, I don't want your work, right? You kind of have to be able to see it, to trust it. And that's how you begin to, build some credibility and trust in the system that you have set up to kind of help you do your work. And I think as operators will attest, theory is one thing, but the day-to-day use it's not just intelligence. Yes, intelligence is important, but kind of having that system in place that you can trust is really, really important.
Yeah. I think you really nailed it when I have an 8 and 9-year-old running around here right now. So it's that question around trust, but verify. I love what you said, trust, but verify. And then speak to it like it's an 8-year-old, right?
Yeah.
Like, did you wash your hands?
Yes,
okay.
yeah.
Are you sure you washed your hands? I didn't hear the ABC song. Can I smell your hands? You know what I mean? Like all these silly things we have to do to teach them
Yes.
that this is what I'm expecting of you.
Yeah.
And I love that. I do think it's maturing fast. So maybe it's going to be a 10-year-old by summer
Yes.
and stuff, but we'll get there. But it's very, very well said that you have to give it as much context as you can. I love like Whisper Flow or Super Whisper, those kinds of tools where you're just talking.
Yes.
Because you and I can talk so fast to give it the context that it needs. So I find myself doing that all the time now to just provide that context.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it kind of unlocks a whole different pace of working that is helpful. And you could do it when you're out on a walk and you kind of think about something and, you can just keep talking to it and then you come back and there's a fully formed thought. So
that's right. And that's where it's so critical to invite AI to everything, because you just want it to get that context all the time. It was really interesting to see Facebook purchase Limitless Pendant because the pendant was listening all the time. So now Facebook's going to have, I don't know what they're going to do with it, but it sounds awesome.
I think it's going to be fascinating.
Scary, but awesome.
It is though, right? And I know I have a lot of friends who are like, I would never, ever wear that thing. But, I actually use my AirPods so much. It's all the time. It's with me. So I feel like there are certain devices that become so seamless in your life that you don't really second guess using it. I don't think Limitless is there yet, based on what I can tell, but there is a future where these things are going to help us better.
It's all these science fiction books I read as a kid that are coming to reality before my eyes. But I mean, my note taker is in every meeting and I'm in meetings all day long, right? So like it already is capturing a good portion of my day. Who cares if it's listening in at the dinner conversation about, did you wash your hands, right? I want to double click on, in your role though, as in the product side of it with the product teams, like, I see this paradigm shift happening where development cycles were the longest thing in the whole life cycle. Yeah. And now with agentic and vibe coding and those kinds of things, like the development cycle is getting shrunk from 2 weeks to 2 hours. Like that's how drastic it's going to be. It's going to come back to these product teams and the vision. And how are you seeing the product teams that you're working with integrating the AI into their workflows and being the bottleneck now? Because you haven't been the bottleneck before, right?
Yeah, it's interesting because, there is a lot of commentary right now around this, but I feel like it has never become even more important to know what you're building, who you're building it for, why you're building. That has always been the most interesting questions. Of course, how you build is important, right? With scale and all of those things. But it's always been important. And I feel like that will never change, regardless of how short the development life cycle is. But if anything, there are tools now, right? As a product person, I had the best relationship with my sales teams, right? I loved speaking to sales teams. I love speaking to support teams, to implementation teams, because that's where the rubber hits the road. And the truth is you're limited by the amount of time you have to be in on every one of these conversations. But now you have transcripts, you have notes. There is a lot of intelligence and insights that you could get if you have access to those raw data that now you can kind of summarize and say, okay, these are the trends I'm seeing. This is what I'm seeing. Okay, now I have a hypothesis that I would like to double click with this client. You have the tools that actually makes you, enables you to be better, because it is true leverage. It's true leverage because now you have the capacity to do things that you really didn't have before because you were limited by how many places you can be at once. I feel like that way it's changing. And also I'll also say about POCs, right? When I think of the last year, I built so many POCs so quickly without wasting my development team's time either. To just say, okay, is this something, like, does this make sense, right? And I can give you a lot of examples, both from a professional context and also your personal context, that I think you would appreciate the personal example too, because you also have a family. School emails are a chaos. They are in so many activities. We get so many emails. I said, I just need an assistant that can read my email, summarize it into bullets, tell me, is there an action item here for me, or is this just an FYI? And now I had the tools to build the entire life cycle. I have an agent that reads my emails from specific email domains, summarizes it, creates an action item, and sends me a text message at the time of my choosing every day.
Yeah.
Right? Never could have imagined.
Where do I sign up? I'll give you $5 a month for that. Come on.
So it's funny. I actually have a few of my other friends who are using it too, because I want to say, okay, does this workflow make sense, or is this now like too many emails? I'm getting kind of a text message every day, which tells me these are all your open to-dos. I'm actually calling it as parent EA, like an executive admin for parents, because I'm like, this is a pain I feel. I want to solve it. And if it saves me like an hour a week, it's worth my time. Right?
Absolutely.
There's so many of these things where you could use it to improve the quality of your life better. Now, I'm not, I'm not oblivious to all the negative things you could have as well with AI, but there is a lot to be hopeful about. So,
I agree completely. I mean, I think it's going to be interesting to look back at the earlier episodes of this podcast and see, because I think on some of the first episodes I said it's going to usher in this new Renaissance era. And it's idea makers like you that just have got, like, I've got my little notebook of 50 ideas, and now I could bring one of those ideas to life every week with the power of AI.
Absolutely.
Now I do think it's going to stifle creativity to a degree, and there's bias in the machines. Like, there's all the bad side of it that we have to figure out too. But it's going to usher in a new way. So it's such a great perspective on the clarity of quickly rapid prototyping things. I think it's really reframing how we think about product work, especially when AI is involved. So
totally. And also I want to say other thing is, when you think of product, is if you're a product person that's kind of joining a team now, right? There is a much better way for you to onboard, to understand, okay, like, where are the big rocks? What are the boulders? What are the pebbles? What are the rocks? Because you could connect your entire code base, all your requirements document into it, and say, okay, I'm kind of thinking of this thing. Is this doable even? Or is this a big lift, right? You could kind of really shorten your learning curve by being more creative in how you use these tools to do your work.
Yeah, absolutely. Excellent point. I mean, it really begs into the next question I want to ask, because we move into this leverage segment of the podcast. You've seen organizations try to apply AI in products and where they get stuck. So how are you seeing effective leverage, and what does that look like to you?
Yeah, I think this is, I can tell you, like, in my own business, in one of the products that I'm working on, it's a B2B product. And if you've been in B2B, security assessments, risk questionnaires happen all the time, right? Every single deal has these. So I kind of think about this as repetitive workflows. And the thing is, in every company I've been in as a product person, I have had to spend hours sometimes reviewing the questions, the responses, because this is kind of a high stakes thing. You want to make sure that you're answering it right. And oftentimes the answers are either in internal policies you've developed, prior assessments you've done, right? But now I do enjoy working in Cloud Code. So I can upload all my security policies, internal policies, and the prior assessments, and give it a list of questions. And I feel this is, again, where I say I need citation. I don't just ask the AI to go through the questions and answer. I always say, hey, give me the specific document that you used to answer this, and what specific page or paragraph or text did you use to answer it, right? And it can kind of do that first pass. I still need to be the human in the loop, because sometimes it is going to make assumptions about some things. But the beauty is, these questions are repetitive, but they're never worded the same. They're slightly different, but as a human, I know that they mean the same thing. And I think this is where AI can help supercharge some of your workflows, is kind of doing that. And then now, like, something that used to take hours, is kind of shorten and kind of just my review time to understand, okay, these are the 3 or 6 places where I need to dig in and clarify, right? So there are so many such small workflows that we all have as a company, as a system, right? That you could now use. But the thing is, it forces you to clarify your steps. And I think that's the beauty of it. So much of it is like tribal knowledge. It's in my head. I haven't written down the steps. But once you start to codify these workflows, you do have to write down the steps. You do have to kind of clarify exactly what you did. Step 1, why did you do this? Why did you do that? So I think I've definitely appreciated that discipline.
I am a huge fan of Starbucks, not because I think they have the best coffee. Like the mom and pops and some of these other places probably have the better coffee, but they have the process down flat.
I think you're right on.
So I see the most successful companies out there have taken exactly what you just said and broken it down to that level. And others don't know how to do it or can't break it down, or they're struggling with that in some fashion. So you are so spot on with the process is the key.
Yeah. And when I consult with some companies, Bri, this question does come up, right? Well, I have this big thing, and I say, like, don't go for the big thing. Start small. In many ways, it seems more manageable to ease your team into, okay, this is one workflow that we can tackle, and we do it like 40 times a week. Okay, now let's see if we can make that better. And it also builds your muscle, right? It's like you don't want to go and try to, deadlift 200 pounds on the first day. Kind of do the the smaller ones before you kind of become a really strong person who can do that kind of weight. Yeah.
So that's true. Like trying to teach the teams how to structure their process to make it useful without creating this chaos. But are there like practical tools or frameworks that you see that helps get that short-term return that the CEO is looking for to keep investing in it?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. I think the answer is probably different based on your team composition, right? Do they have the curiosity? Do they want to learn? Do they have the aptitude to learn? Right. And I think probably companies need to think about this as an investment. I can tell you personally, I have invested my time, right? I have definitely, taken a couple of courses just to get me started. But after that, it really comes down to your personal curiosity to want to learn. And then you kind of find one thing. But I think it's less about the tool. It's more about the thinking and the framework. Saying, okay, I'm looking at this. I say, okay, what are all the aspects of this workflow that I feel can be automated away, right? And I feel like software in many ways has always unbundled some of our work into like smaller pieces, right? We use Excel now, but not for all of it. We use it for some of it, right? So you kind of have to build that muscle to think about what parts of my work have I kind of know the exact process that I can now automate it. But then I still need to pick it up at some point and kind of be the human in the loop and review or improve upon it over time. I feel like that's probably the biggest thing, is looking at this as an investment in your team, in your people, in yourself. I think it's probably going to be important. But I'm also curious, what have you seen, Brian, this in terms of what are some companies that are really good at it doing differently?
But I think you already said it. I think it's taking a pause. It's taking a moment to breathe as an organization. Yeah. It's like, I can't be in meetings from 8 to 5. I've got to carve out an hour after lunch to hang out with you and just brainstorm some ideas with AI, or I've got to just play with Claude Code for an hour, because it's a brand new tool. It's like, the first time we got our iPhone and we didn't have a pencil anymore, like we're using our finger, like this broke our brains, right? Like we needed to just play with the phone. So it's carving out the time to explore the new thing and figure out how you're going to adapt it into your life, right?
Absolutely.
And I think too many organizations are running on such small margins and they don't feel like they can take their foot off the gas to figure out what the new normal is going to look like for them. So I'm just encouraging my companies to please take a moment and let's really think about how this is going to change our strategy, how it's going to change every job role at our company, and let's play with it and break stuff, and we'll put it back together in a month once we've got some clarity.
Yes.
Right. So
yes, absolutely. I think having some
that's
space.
what you were saying, right?
Absolutely. I feel like
Yeah.
having some space to experiment and see what works and have the room to fail and refine it further. I think you're right on, right? And I feel like there are of course there are many good YouTube videos. There's so much self-directed learning here as well. But I think as a larger organization,
AI will teach you.
Totally, it will. It will, right? Yeah. I recall initially I used to kind of save these prompts that people used to say works, and then I realized you can just ask your whatever is your AI tool of choice to say, I want to do this. What's the best prompt for it?
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
And then you kind of take it and then you refine it further to kind of fit your use case. So,
and obviously the LLMs have gotten better and stronger too to help support that. But it's also just knowing certain keyword triggers. I need you to think critically about this. I need you to do the deep research on this. I need you to check at least 10 sources, like those little things that we work into our language that helps emphasize, like, don't come back with a quick answer, like go and think about it, which will trigger the thinking model to go off versus just the quick 2+2 model to get you that. But this is all the tricks that I think go into our last segment, which is leadership. So I see leadership changing so fast in the age of AI. What kind of leadership does this moment call for in this product and tech organization that you're plugged into?
Yeah, I think it's a really, really good question. I feel like leaders always cast a bigger shadow in everything. But I think that's especially true here because your people are looking at you as a leader and saying, how are you adopting? How are you embracing AI? Are you willing to experiment? Are you willing to kind of, take on the beginner's mindset and say, you know what, I'm not an AI expert. So let me kind of figure out what works, what doesn't work. And I feel we as leaders do need to create that space for people to learn, experiment, and kind of reap the rewards of it. It may not happen today, it may not happen tomorrow, but it is going to happen. At some point, kind of that switch flips. And then you've just unlocked kind of a new level in this game that you never even knew existed, right? It's kind of like that. I feel like that is probably the biggest thing. And also we need to reward leverage, right? Not just outputs, right? Someone who's figured out a better way to do this needs to be awarded as well. So kind of figuring out what is that. I will also say that a larger an enterprise, the harder it is to do this, right? You do need to be careful, and depending on your industry, you need to be careful, right? With healthcare, you need to be careful about what data you're putting, what tools you're using. So in many ways, it's better if you as an enterprise embrace and give the people the tools with the right governance structure, because your people are going to do it anyway. You just may not know it. Right.
And we just saw the security threats of you copying and pasting something into an LLM.
Yeah.
Like you copy a website, there could be hidden prompts in that content that you copied. And so like it's such an important thing to make sure the bigger organizations have got a true data governance plan and are looking for that kind of secret LLM infiltration. So it's a really strong point, but it came back to that previous point of you saying to the leaders out there, you have the ability to take the time that your team needs you to take to figure out AI for your organization. And it comes back to that. You've got to eat your own dog food and play with it and figure out, that kind of a thing. So
I mean, I'm also thinking of an analogy, right? I always used to say, like, the hardest job as a leader is to hire the right people. Because you know what? It takes time. It takes time to filter out, screen candidates, find the right fit for your team, your organization. Because it's not just about that person, right? It's about whether that person is the right fit for what you need at this point.
Yeah.
But you know what? If you can take the time now, you're going to end up with a really good person on your team who's going to give your team the leverage, your company the leverage. I feel the same about investing in AI. As it's going to take time, but invest it in now so that you can reap those rewards later, right?
Yeah.
It's always easy to kind of delay that for some other future point that may never come. So,
do you think there's Is there any quick tips you'd give people to build the right foundation to make sure that AI is going to be an asset instead of a liability? Like, that's the dichotomy of it, really.
Yeah. I would say, I think it's, some of the topics we've discussed, right? Like pick a small workflow. Pick the one thing that your team is doing today, that they're doing multiple times a day or multiple times a week, and say, okay, you know what, this is the only workflow we're going to automate. Let's see if we can do it better, faster. And then it slowly will snowball because your teams will speak to other teams, and then it still slowly improves over time as well.
Yeah, I just love that. Leadership is clearly like that steady guide through rapid change, right? Like we've got to help. And I think you touched on it with the hiring comments, really. You know, it's clarity, empathy, helping people feel confident about how they're moving forward at your organization, right? They're looking at you to really lead that. So
yeah, but in many ways, it's a good time because you don't have people who worked in AI for 40 years. I mean, I'm sure, right. I'm sure there are researchers and so on, but more on the operator side, a lot of us are kind of learning this, right, in the last few years. So in many ways, this is a really good time to be in because everybody is learning and sharing and improving their knowledge over time. So I think that's what I would say. Like, just don't be afraid. Invite AI to everything. Right?
That's right. Well said. Anu, thank you so much for being here. I mean, you really brought a nice blend of strategic thinking and AI fluency that's going to bring a lot of clarity to people that are listening today.
Thank you so much, Brian. I really appreciate you inviting me here and to kind of be a part of this podcast. I definitely learn from every podcast person I listen to, and I hope, there is something in here for other people too.
Absolutely. To everyone listening out there, thank you for being part of the AI with Bri community. If today's conversation gave you something to think about, it would mean a lot to me and Anu if you followed our show, left a quick review for us, and shared this episode with someone else working in product or AI. You can connect directly with Anu on LinkedIn, and I'll make sure her link is in our show notes. And you can check out her couple companies that she's a deep part of. And those, again, were Parson's AI and cruxpartners.co. So check out those couple links as well. Those links will be in the show notes as well. And thank you again, Anu. It was so amazing to have you on the show today.
Absolutely. Thanks, Brian. Have a great day.
I'm Brian. Thanks again for spending your time with me. The pace of change isn't slowing down, so stay curious, stay adaptable, and as always, learn, leverage, and lead with AI. We'll see you next time. This episode of AI with Bri was hosted and produced by me, Brian Denstedt. Produced with help from Nancy Velasquez and Kelly Lopez. Video by Leo Moralina. Sound AI generated. Find us on all platforms at AI with Bri and visit ai.bri.net for more. Learn, leverage, lead.